Yeah, as Emily said, I'm lead strategist here at Digital 22, which means I'm responsible for um, setting campaign strategies, marketing strategies across the full marketing mix, including lead scoring and chatbots that we're going to talk about a bit today. We're going to start out with lead scoring, as you can see on the screen here. Can everyone see the screen? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can.
Perfect. So yeah, lead scoring. Lead scoring for me, it's one of the most important things that can be included in an inbound strategy, and it's something that we find is criminally underused. It's the conduit between sales and marketing that helps to align everything, make sure the sales funnel and the marketing activities are all aligned, and that the sales team are getting the leads that they want, and the marketing team know what they're getting, what they're giving, and what the quality of the leads that are coming through, and it's worth continually testing. On the first slide here, we can see some research that was carried out by HubSpot in 2020, I think it was, but still very relevant, showing what the company's top priorities from a sales perspective were. As you can imagine, closing more deals, as always, in a sales pipeline is going to be the most important thing. However, what's really telling is the next two uh, priorities that they put down. So that was improving the efficiency of the sales funnel and reducing the length of the sales cycle. Each of these things can be achieved through lead scoring, and it's basically going to help them to achieve the top. So closing more deals, if you can get these two done better, you're going to close more deals, you're going to have better leads, sales team are going to be happier. The second part of that research showed that companies that had a tightly aligned marketing and sales department, where there was an SLA, service level agreement, in place, they had the majority of their leads coming from marketing as opposed to referrals and leads directly sourced by sales. As you can see, the generally aligned, it was mostly from sales, rarely aligned, again, mostly from sales, and misaligned, still from sales. So basically, the benefit of including lead scoring, having that SLA in place, being tightly aligned between your marketing and sales departments means that marketing can provide more leads at a better quality. For HubSpot, this involves one metric. I'm sure some of you may already be familiar with it. We're talking about the HubSpot score. When we talk about lead scoring, there's so many different things that you can score a lead based on, from your social engagement, your email opens and clicks, blog engagement, pages that they've viewed, the buying behavior, how much time they spend on your website, right down to the demographic information, such as like what sector they're from, what job they do. What the HubSpot score does is it takes all of this stuff and puts it into one handy score that you can base your lead scoring on. Why lead scoring? So the reason for doing lead scoring is because it's standardized and remove opinion. Previously, marketing and sales departments would sit and debate leads and go, is this a good lead? Is this a bad lead? Ultimately, it's down to the sales team to say it is a good lead. It's something we want to follow up. With a tightly aligned SLA and lead scoring in place, what you basically have is a standardized template for what is a good lead. That way you can confidently, if you're a marketer, you can be confident that any lead you send on to sales is an interest. And if you're in sales, you can be confident that the leads coming from marketing are going to be something that you want to follow up. And that all comes down to this SLA agreement between marketing and sales. Lead scoring is very much a joint effort. It's something that everyone should be involved in. Sorry, just 1 second. And helps measure the cycle quality, shorten sales cycle, and improve the efficiency of the sales process. There's a few things that you can use lead scoring for, chief amongst which is qualifying your prospects, making sure, anyone that does come through to your website is a good fit for your business. They're a prospect, they're someone that your sales team is going to want to talk to. Next up, excluding bad fits. So lead scoring works two ways. Yeah, you want your good prospects, but you can actually start to exclude those that you don't want to be having conversations with if they work in a particular industry that you're not interested in working with, if they're not the right company size, for example, or if they're just not a persona that you tend to engage with. You can prioritize your internal actions. So, you can make sure your marketing is really aligned on those prospects that are the best fit for you. You can look at people who are well engaged with your company and really sort of narrow down your marketing activities. Finally, you can simplify your reporting. You can look at different figures, give more meaning to it. If you're reporting on your marketing leads and where everyone is, you've got that pipeline there. You can talk about who your hot leads are. You can talk about where your cold leads are and how they're progressing through your marketing and sales funnel. Next up. Some best practices for lead scoring. There's 3 different scoring categories that we would advise using, and we'd advise doing it in this order as well. So when you're creating your lead scoring criteria, first thing to start off with is the contact information. Who do you want to speak to? What's the demographic data of people that you want as a healthy customer or a healthy prospect? And that could be things included what country or region within a country that they come from, what their persona type is, what their job role is or their level of seniority, what sector or vertical they operate in. So, for example, you might have an industry that you do particularly well in, you want to might work with more people within that industry or that sector, what they're interested in, whether you know their phone number and their email address, and countless other pieces of demographic data that you can collect using HubSpot. Next up, you've got your interactions and behaviors, which is possibly one of the most important because it's how they're engaging with your business. You can build up a picture of an engaged prospect by the way they interact with your website. So examples of that could be the number of times that they visit your website, how many times they return, how many times they've visited a key page. So a good example of this that we often use is if you've got a pricing page and someone's visiting that pricing page, you can track that in HubSpot and you can assign a HubSpot score based on that. Obviously, what as we know, if someone's looking at pricing, they're pretty close to the end of the buyer's journey. They're looking at different options and it might mean that they're a good lead. So you might assign a higher score to that. Blog views, another option. If someone's really engaged with the content that you're creating, and they're reading multiple blogs, they're spending a lot of time on the blog pages, they're going to be building that score up slowly. Your emails, if they're opening, clicking emails, you can assign scores based on both of those actions. Social interaction, if they're commenting on your posts, if they're liking a lot of stuff, if they're clicking through your posts onto your website quite regularly. Again, what we've got there is quite an engaged prospect. We've also got types of forms filled out. The way we tend to do this at Digital 22 is we have 3 types of forms that we work with: the awareness form, a consideration form, and a decision form. We assign a score that is based on each of those criteria. So an awareness form might be worth 10 points, consideration 20, and a decision, which would be something where like a contact form or someone's requested a demo, that would be a higher score, say 30 points. Finally, one of the most overlooked aspects of lead scoring is negative. Quite often find that when we work with clients, they've got the contact information, interactions and behaviors they want, but they haven't thought about negative lead scoring. And it's just as important to weed out the bad fits as it is to make sure that you're including the good fits. So some common things that we would include usually would include unsubscribes from emails, quite an obvious one. If someone's visited your career page multiple times, it usually means that obviously they're looking for a job. They're not looking to become a prospect. You don't want to send them through to your sales team. So if they've visited that careers page multiple times, maybe assign them a negative score. Competitor email domains are used. So if it's a competitor that's coming on and we know it's coming from a competitor email domain, they're probably just being a bit nosy, to be honest. So we don't want to be sending that through to the sales team. If they've been unengaged with your email, so you could set an arbitrary figure and say if they've not opened the last 10 emails, they may get a negative HubSpot score. If they've never opened one of your emails, it might be a slightly higher negative score. If they've not revisited your site in 6 months, again, negative score. And if it's a bad fit persona or a bad fit sector, so what we'll do quite often is we'll include on forums sectors that we're actually not interested in working with. If someone selects that sector, at least we know then that's not a contact that we want to follow up. What do we use the score for? So HubSpot score can be used, as we mentioned before, for your reporting quality, calculating engagement and prospect fits, also scoring your MQLs and your SQLs. So you can have your MQLs and SQLs, but you can also see who your high scoring MQLs are, who your hottest leads are, and who your high scoring SQLs are, the ones that sales really want to focus on. So it really helps with segmentation and helping to focus your efforts. You can use HubSpot Score to trigger alerts and workflows in HubSpot. So use it as an automation tool. If a prospect hits a certain HubSpot score, you might want to send them an email. You might want to change their life cycle stage. You might want to do any number of actions that you can do in HubSpot based on the HubSpot score. So, the most engaged leads, you might want to send them additional content via email. You might want to, add them to another marketing list. You might want to do all sorts of different things. You can provide better segmentation for your email, so you can set up different email lists based on the HubSpot score. You could have your high scoring MQLs, for example, and that you might want to send targeted emails to your high scoring MQLs that have got a high HubSpot score. And basically also weed out your least engaged contacts. So you could have a re-engagement list, which quite commonly would do, based on people who have a low HubSpot score and maybe need that little bit more nurturing. Maybe they could be on the cusp of either being classified as unengaged and adding to the grey mail, or they could be, just need that little bit of extra nurturing to try and get them to the higher HubSpot score. You can also use it to provide quick context and prioritization for your teams. Like I said before, prioritize your marketing efforts, make sure you're focusing on the leads that you know are the most engaged. Other things to consider when it comes to lead scoring is making sure you involve more than just the marketing team. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes that we see quite often is the marketing team comes up with the lead scoring, they implement it into HubSpot. The other teams haven't agreed to it. There's not an SLA there. So there's no service level agreement. I'd recommend that you get multiple teams involved. So certainly your marketing and sales team should be aligned on your lead scoring. Everyone should have agreed to the criteria that's set, but also your services team could have an input into that. And there could be, even your sort of board of directors may have an opinion on it. The more opinions you can get on the lead scoring and have everyone tightly aligned on that, the better the buy-in is going to be at every stage. It's a work in progress. So you can see, we recommend you review your lead scoring on a quarterly basis. It's worth looking and asking sales sort of, what were the leads like coming through? Did you get any bad fits through? If they're getting bad fit leads that they're not wanting to follow up, that's a sort of a symptom that your lead scoring is maybe not set up just as refined or just as correctly as you want it to be. So having those constant conversations, at least on a quarterly basis, is really key to this. However, on the flip side of that, you may find that they want to have a look at the leads that are not getting sent through, and they may find that there's some in there that they're like, "Oh, actually would want to follow that up." You can tweak the lead scoring to make sure that you're getting the best fit through at all times. Also, as we said, and we can't stress enough, don't forget your negative attributes. Getting started with lead scoring, I'll run you through our process. The business, you might have different ways of doing it, but this is how we like to do it, and it's very low tech in a way, but it's the most effective way of doing it. A basic Google sheet or an Excel sheet or whatever you want to use, simply create one, and you want these 3 columns. So you want to look at the type of scoring. So what are you scoring based on? The examples here, you've got things such as blog interactions, if they're a key persona or not, what type of employment they have, what location they're in, or what contact info and you can do the same with the negative as well. If you've got different behavior, email activity, and just make sure you've got that categorized there, because it will just make it easier in the long run to tweak this as you go forward. This is quite a simple example of one. But these can become quite lengthy documents as you move as a business and you understand better what you want out of lead scoring. Next thing to add is the activity. So what is it that they're doing that you want to score based on? So the examples we've got here are like a blog subscription. You've got what job title they've got, the persona. If they're a marketing director, they're a CMO, they might be a higher score than someone who's in a managerial or just an employee role. If you've got personas of like a financial director, then their employment type, are they full-time, are they part-time? It's just an example. You might not collect this data. Country, if you were specifically working within the UK, for example, you're probably not going to want to follow up any leads from the US, maybe, if you don't have operations there. But you can make sure that you can score based on the territories that you operate within, and make sure you assign a higher score to them. Similarly, with your negative, you might want to say, if someone comes from a country outside of the UK, let's negatively score them. We don't want to send them through to the sales team. And then finally, obviously, with the contact info, you might have phone number is known or email is known. That could give you a higher score there. Next up is actually the most difficult part of it, is assigning the score. There's no hard and fast rule on this. It'll be different for every business. And it's not something it's not something that you could just come up with in a heartbeat. It's something you really want to think about. What value is added to that activity? Obviously, as an example, where subscription to a blog might be 10, knowing the right persona could be 20, employment types, but you might have higher scores than this, or even lower scores than this. You might have really low touch activities that are worth some points. You might be worth 5. Similarly, then with your negative as well, just making sure you're equally weighting those scores. The reason you do that is because you need to decide on your threshold. So it's an arbitrary number. You could have, not to 1,000 or not to whatever. It's basically setting up how in the way that best works for your business. We like to keep to 0 to 100. It makes things a little bit simpler, and it gives you that scope to have a wide range of scores within there. This is an example of what you might set up. So you might have a score based on a 0 to 100. Anyone who achieves 30 to 40 HubSpot score, you might qualify them as a marketing qualified lead. Anyone who's in that sort of 41 to 59 bracket, you could classify as a high score in MQL. So your highest priorities, they're really engaged. 60 to 70, your sales qualified leads. So these are the ones that you've worked hard with the sales team to work with. And that's the one that you're mostly going to be aligned on. Anyone that's over that would be your highest priority. So they're the ones that you and sales are aligned on. They've got a really high sales qualified lead status, probably very hot prospects, and just ready to, have those conversations with the sales team. Next step is to set up your workflows that carry this out. So the HubSpot score on its own will not just do these things. You have to set up the automation in the background that's going to do it. So you'd have to set up a simple workflow that would say, if a contact has a score of 55, update the lifecycle to an MQL. If it's 12, there'd be no action because obviously we don't have a score based on that. They remain as a subscriber or a lead, depending on your sales funnel, your marketing funnel, sorry. And obviously if someone hits 89, you'd have a workflow that would then update their lifecycle in HubSpot to an SQL. Setting up smart lists is a really good idea for quick access. So a smart list or an active list, however you want to call it. And you can easily set up some basic filtering on these. So you can see who your MQLs are, who your SQLs are, who your high scoring SQLs are or your MQLs, and also your bad fit contacts. This is going to help you when you're sending out email campaigns later or looking at other targeting metrics. So you can base on these lists rather than, doing multiple filters in an email send. So, if you just wanted to sort of send a message to your high scoring MQLs, you could include your high scoring MQLs and obviously exclude any bad fit contacts or any grey mail or any unsubscribes, that kind of thing. Placing the HubSpot score. So once you've got it all set up, you can make sure that each contact record displays the HubSpot score. This is really useful for your sales team, particularly when they're jumping into contacts and looking at where things are up to. They can see where the HubSpot score is up to and, how likely that contact is to react to a sales conversation. As you can see here on an example with Josh's name on it, this can be generally, put that sort of in the about this contact. It's something that's really crucial once you get into it to knowing where it is. So it's good to be able to see that at a glance. Any questions on lead scoring? You can either drop them in the chat or you can turn your microphone off if you like. Nope.
Okay.
Everyone.
So if there are any questions that you think of later on, by all means drop them into the key channel. We're recording this video and we will be putting it in key as well. So you'll be able to re-access all this.
Yeah, we can send the slide decks as well, if you prefer in that format.
Yeah. You ready, Sam?
Yeah, ready to go.
Nice one. Over to you.
Yeah, normally we'd have multiple speakers in you. You wouldn't have so much of me, but unfortunately you're stuck with me today. So yeah, obviously the next topic we're going to move on to is conversational marketing and chatbots and their role within that, specifically using HubSpot chatbots. Let's just jump straight in, shall we? So yeah, covering three aspects of chatbots today. So firstly, what is conversational marketing? We'll go into a little bit of detail about conversational marketing and its history, chatbots and their role within conversational marketing, and then how chat flows work within HubSpot. So yeah, what is conversational marketing? It's absolutely not a new thing. It's something that has been sort of slowly evolving over the years. It's more of a one-to-one approach to marketing. Obviously the traditional method was more of a one-to-many, broadcasting rather than talking. And it's something that we see more and more as consumers and prospects. They want things on their own terms. So unlike traditional marketing, conversational marketing uses these targeted real-time messages in the form of chatbots and live chats, which if you haven't used them as a marketer before, I'm sure you've used them as a consumer. There'll have been times when you've gone on a website and you have a query of some sort, and you see the live chat and you think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. Or similarly, chatbots, which are a slightly different sort of way of doing it, but we'll go into that in a bit more detail. So yeah, these can replace lead capture forms and just make it a little bit easier for your prospects to engage with you on a one-to-one basis and get the answers they need. So yeah, as we mentioned, the old way was very business centric. It was all about us. You have to be qualified by the company. You have to follow the right processes. You get the random emails that are sent out when we send them, whether you're busy or not. You get generic experiences, something that's not personalized. You know that you're just one of many that are being marketed to, and you can't find the right information when you need it, when you want it. The new way is more customer centric. So this is how conversational marketing comes in. It's making sure that your prospects are treated like a person. They get to buy on their own terms and on their own timeline. They get to engage on their own terms when they want, how they want, and they want a personalized experience that they feel like that business is talking directly to them. They want to find it now, basically, whether your office hours are in or not. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the graph on the left-hand side, the traditional funnel of marketing leading into sales and onto customers, and then end, draw a line under it. A few of you might also have seen the flywheel diagram on the right-hand side. So this is HubSpot's flywheel that they developed, which basically is a very similar process, but it's marketing into sales, into service, and then keep moving. Obviously, delighting your customers, making sure they continue to be customers. So you're still marketing to your customers and you're putting them at the center of everything that you do. The more that you fill each of these three aspects, the faster the flywheel is going to move and the more growth your business is going to see, which is the whole point of HubSpot. It's the growth platform. So yeah, by putting your customers at the center of your activities, your marketing, your sales, and your service, you're gonna see that flywheel move quicker. You're going to see more leads. You're going to see more revenue from existing customers. This is a graph from Drift, but it really well summarizes up conversational marketing and the five key benefits from it. Creating a more human buying experience can't be stressed enough, and it's just by creating more, the irony of creating this more human buying experience is that actually bots can handle most of this stuff. So it feels more human, but it requires less human intervention. So it's less labor intensive on your part. Let them handle the tedious stuff and let your reps take care of the tasks that require that human element, the questions that can't be answered by a bot. Make sure that your service teams aren't answering the same questions over and over and over again, taking up all the time. The other benefit is that you're going to learn a ton of stuff about your customers. When you're having these conversations and you're collecting this information, regardless of whether it's a bot or a person doing it, you're constantly learning about your customer base. You're constantly refining your personas and you're learning about them nonstop, whether you're in the office or whether you're asleep 24 hours a day. Adding a net source of new leads. The example here is that Drift had added 15% new leads to the top of the funnel by having these conversations. Chatbots are a great form of lead capture, not as traditional as a form. And I'm not saying there's not a place for forms still, there absolutely is. But these can work 24 hours a day, collecting leads, collecting information, and helping people to generally navigate to the information they want. Importantly for the sales and the marketing team, you shorten the sales cycle by making sure that people have the information they need when they need it, not having to wait for an email back or wait for the office to open or for someone to take the call. The sales cycle can be dramatically reduced. The example here is that Thrive Hive were able to shorten their sales cycle by 63%. So that's 11 days down to 4 days. So there's massive incremental gains here. And also you can grow your sales pipeline. If you're generating more leads, you're reducing your sales pipeline. Obviously, the obvious benefit of that is that you're going to drive more business. You're going to have more people in your sales pipeline. Also, core to the inbound methodology, not the only method in the inbound methodology. It should be mentioned, but your attract, convert, close, and delight stage. You're going to attract these people through your traditional, your blogs, your keywords, your social publishing. But at every other stage of that funnel, you're going to be having these conversations. If you're looking to convert, it's conversations that convert people into leads. Once you've got leads, it's conversations that are going to help them to ultimately become a customer. And then once the customer, it's conversations that are going to keep them delighted, keep them as customers, amongst other things, like above here, like you've got your forums, your call to actions, your deal pipeline, your productivity tools and stuff. But in each of these instances, it's conversations that's going to keep people moving through. and keep them staying, more importantly. Right, onto chatbots and their role in conversational marketing strategy. First up, what is a chatbot? It's basically a computer program that's designed to simulate a conversation with a human user, especially over the internet. One thing that I do want to stress here is really important is you should make sure this is a bot. It can be really frustrating for people if the bot is too good almost at conversational marketing and someone thinks they're speaking to a human being. It can become quite frustrating when they don't have obviously the level of intelligence needed to have the in-depth conversation. So whilst you want to use a conversational tone and make sure it seems friendly and warm, it should always be clear that this is a bot. You can use chatbots on multiple places. So your website, you can use them in Facebook Messenger, on Slack, text messages, much more. And it's all about working with your sort of content team here to make sure that the tone is nailed on and that you've got the right sort of flow of activities, flow of engagements. Chatbots are based on well, there's two types of chatbots actually. One that's based on a set of rules that are assigned by the marketing team or perhaps the sales team, and one that uses machine learning. The chatbot's based on rules, very limited. They can only respond to specific commands that they're programmed to do. If you say the wrong thing, it won't know what you mean. It's only as smart as the strategy behind it. So the person who's created that chatbot, they are limited, but they can be very smart. It's all in the planning. A chatbot that functions using machine learning, these are the kind of things that you see in movies. They have artificial brains, they can learn, they don't have to be ridiculously specific, they'll get better and better over time. These are slightly more complicated, but ultimately these are the ones that are going to understand the long language. They don't need specific commands. Uses of a chatbot. Firstly, you can use them to capture leads. So you have a visitor and you've got a chatbot on your website, for example, you can replace your lead capture forms with this messaging. The bots can ask questions. They can, ask for a name. They can ask for an email address. They can ask what they're trying to achieve and sort of collect information about them in a really slow, natural way. The targeting lets you filter out the noise and you can just basically have it running 24 hours a day, capturing leads. Also ideal for qualifying those leads. So once it captures them, you can have different automation sequences that will then sort of drill down into who that lead is and qualify them as someone you maybe want to speak to, or also basically add negative attributes so that someone that you don't want to speak to. Very similar to the lead scoring we talked about before. It's important that you're trying to qualify the leads through these chatbots. Who do you want to speak to and who don't you want to speak to? And then finally, you can use them to connect. So, we spoke about live chat a bit earlier and chatbots. These two can work hand in hand. You could have it so that you have a chatbot that qualifies a lead and then passes them on to a real life sales agent in a live chat function, or provides them with some other contact detail or some other way of getting in touch. Basically, it can replace manual meeting scheduling. So you could have an action within your chatbot that said to schedule a meeting with one of your sales team. The key thing with any chatbot is to know before you start doing it what you want to get out of the conversation and what the data or what contact data you need to make that happen. Every conversation you have should have value. These things can quickly spiral out of control. Sometimes it's really useful to work backwards. So what is the action you ultimately want? And what is the journey you need to take that contact on to make that happen? So different ways that chatbots can help. Answering frequently asked questions or customer specific questions where you've already got the data. A good example of this could be if your sales or service team are constantly dealing with the same questions over and over. You actually have a blog post that answers that in detail. Your chatbot could bring that up and it could direct prospects onto that blog post. So, if you've got a problem with XYZ, we've got a handy blog post here that answers every question you want, or it could send them to a relevant section in your FAQ section if you have one. All sorts of things, just making sure taking down the sort of impact on your human element. If they're not having to answer those questions because the chatbot's taking care of it, it's going to ultimately leave your team with more time to focus on business critical matters. Next up, qualifying leads. We just spoke about that in quite a bit of detail, but if you're generating the leads, it can help you to sort of impact score. You can include your HubSpot score in it and ultimately collect more and more information about these contacts and help you qualify them. If you need to promote specific events, products, and content, so a more campaign-based chatbot, you could be live for a certain amount of time to promote an event, discuss a product, or promote some content that you've got. As we mentioned earlier, you can use it to schedule meetings. So you could basically combine it with the qualification and say, we want to schedule meetings, but we only want to schedule meetings with qualified customers. You could have a chat flow that essentially qualifies a customer and then pushes them towards booking a meeting. And then finally, you can use it to collect feedback from your customers and prospects. So if they have a problem, they want to troubleshoot something, they have an issue that they want to discuss, but they maybe don't want to speak to a human person, it's a good way to get some feedback. The HubSpot chat flow tool specifically, chatbots come in all shapes and forms, but HubSpot's is quite specific. HubSpot's works for websites only, so it can work basically on any of your web pages, and you can choose which web pages that it does show up on, but there is no AI involved. It is all user run, so you will have to design the chat flow and come up with the sort of journey that you want to send your prospects on. It comes with the basic marketing packages, but it can be more powerful when it's integrated with the sort of sales and service hubs and can do some really cool things. One thing to mention here, I think is relevant, is that you can have this if you've got a mixture of CMSs. So you've got, for example, HubSpot with WordPress. You can have the chatbot from HubSpot show up on web pages that aren't in HubSpot. So it's not something that's limited to having HubSpot CMS. You can like we talked about a bit earlier, you can let's qualify leads, book meetings, do questions and more. And it's very much like building a workflow, if anyone's familiar with that. You've got your if-then branches, and you basically build out your workflow to say, if a contact has done this, then send them to this place. If a contact has given you this information, maybe send that detail to a team member. You can use it to trigger different actions. These can be very, very simple, or they can be very, very complicated, depending on your needs as a business. 5 things to consider, the 5 W's when you're building a chatbot. These are from Drift, but they make a lot of sense. And I think you can see, obviously, in HubSpot, they sort of prompt you to think about these things beforehand. What page do you want to show them on? It might be that you want a website-wide chatbot, or it might be that it's specific to a certain element of your business, in which case you only want it to show up on like the relevant service pages or on relevant resources, or however it might be. That way you can have multiple chatbots that are doing multiple things on your website, but make sure they're staying on the relevant web pages. Think about who you're trying to engage and who you're building the chatbot for, or the chat flow for, and make sure you can tailor that to the journey that they would expect. Where did they come from? Have they come through your organic? Have they come through your directs? What are you expecting them to do? Why are they here? If you don't know why they're here, you're very unlikely to be able to send them on a journey that's going to be relevant to them. You want to have an idea of what they're going to want to achieve when you get there, so that you can tailor your messaging and tailor that journey to help them achieve what they're trying to get. And then when do you engage them? It could be that in the chat flow there's a break in there. It might be that you turn around and say, wait a few days before the sales team get involved, or ping them, but it's all about timing. Guidelines for a healthy chatbot. Don't ask too many qualifying questions. It can be off-putting, much like in a form. You want to get the right information, but you want to eke it out of them slowly rather than a big wall of questions straight off the bat. Ask for the contact's name and email address last is always a good best practice. It's something that people are quite sensitive about giving the data out, but if you can build up the relationship with the chat flow and then ask for that detail last, they're going to be more confident that doing this is going to help to solve their problem. They're going to be more likely to give you those details. Ensuring you've got a clear brand voice throughout the bot journey. More than likely, if you guys have tone of voice for your business, you want to make sure that stays, that shows through your chatbot. We said before, make sure it's clear that it's a bot, but there's no reason it can't have the brand voice. It can't have a nice conversational tone. Make sure you've got a clear call to action and multiple backups. There's nothing more frustrating than hitting the call to action and it's not the call to action you want as a user. So there should be more branches that you can go down. If that's not the solution you want, maybe try this. Having a strong opener that basically hits on a pain point that you can solve. So if you've done persona workshops before, or you've got personas for your business, you've likely included pain point details in there. That can be really powerful as an opener, because it's something they're going to be struggling with. So if you're struggling to qualify leads, for example, it's going to be something that if you're targeting a persona, you'd be like, oh yeah, I am. That's going to move them on further along the journey. Also, having a clear understanding of your company's value proposition and knowing where you would sit in this customer's sort of thoughts about your business will help you to tailor that message towards them. Finally, like anything in HubSpot, it's always good to analyze and reflect upon these things. So, again, it's not a set and forget thing creating a chatbot. You're going to want to analyze the performance, see where people are getting stuck, and continually refine your chat flow to make sure it's optimized for the customers or prospects. You can do this in HubSpot. You simply go to like your conversations into chat flow, and then you just drop into the analyze dashboard here. And you can see here on the GIF, there's all sorts of analysis that you can look at. What kind of chat conversations are being having, how much time they're spending, who's talking to them the most, who they're going through to in your sales team. And you can really dig down into the success of this chat flow. Really recommend doing this on like a monthly basis and finding out, how people are moving through that workflow. If they're getting stuck, what can we do to amend that? If people are getting a little bit frustrated with it, chat flows should get better over time. Obviously, you want to start as strong as possible, but make sure that you're constantly refining that. Any questions on chatbots? I feel like I've been speaking forever. If there's anything in the chat, is there, Emily? No?
Nothing in the chat, no.
No problem. How can you see the chat reports? So the analyze. So that is all hosted in HubSpot. Just go back to the slide here. So yeah, as you can see here, you go into conversations in the top under marketing and chat flow, and then you go into analyze. So yeah, you can see here on the GIF. So you're going into report library and conversations. Does that answer the question? You can basically build your custom reports based on this, much like you do anything else in HubSpot as well. So you can customize that to what you want to be able to report on, the metrics that you want to be seeing first. In HubSpot, trying to think how I can show this. Let's have a look. There is a Knowledge Hub article here that is handy. So reporting on chat and email conversations. What I'll do is I'll drop this in the chat, and obviously it'll be on the slides as well for a little bit more detail. If you've got any other questions, we could jump on that afterwards. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions before we wrap up? No, well, as Emily said earlier on, if you do think of anything related to this report or this presentation or anything else, you can either drop us an email, or you can drop it in the inbound after hours chat, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible on that. You're welcome, Lisa. It's really great to chat with you all.
Nice one. And just a reminder that the next training is on the 15th of December. We'll obviously get all the codes out to you for joining that meeting as well. And that's going into reporting and the teams within HubSpot in a bit more detail. So we can always get conversational reporting added as well to that, if that would be helpful for you all.
Thank you.
You're
Amazing.
welcome.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.